Hi, baddies. Welcome back to another episode of Tara's Baddies Club. I am Tara Newell, your host, and today I'm excited because I have my friend Linda coming on today. We met in yoga teacher training, and she has a story about narcissism and also her son passing away from an overdose. So we're going to get into two different conversations today. So trigger warning for anyone experience a loss or dealing with addiction or anything along those lines, and narcissist, that is the main topic that we normally talk about on this podcast. And we throw in a little bit of fun episodes every now and then. So I hope you enjoy the story that I have today with Linda, and let's get into the episode. Hi, Linda. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to have you because you're one of my good friends. And we met a very unique way in yoga teacher training.
Yes. Hi, Tara. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be on your show.
Yes, thank you for coming on. And so I think it's really funny how we met because we were both mourning a loss. However, I was mourning a furry animal. And just the way it went down was I was mourning my furry animal. There's a bigger connection because he was in my attack with me and stuff. But
Yeah.
then you also shared that you lost your son. And that is in no way a comparison at all. And how we met, I was like, I lost my dog. And you're like, I lost my son. And you're like, really?
I was on my spiritual journey, and I was doing a lot of yoga and meditation, and I had signed up for teacher training, and I lost Tristan in July 2021 to overdose, and I was just about to not do the teacher training. And I'm like, I don't think I should do it. And my daughter said, of all times in your life, you need to do it right now, Mom. It's going to help heal you. So I decided to do the yoga teacher training, which is to this day one of the top 10 best experiences of my entire life. The inward journey was something I can't even describe, and the friendships that were cultivated were amazing. So on that first night, we had to go around the room and say, our name and why we were doing teacher training. And I remember you went first and I was supposed to go second. And you said, I'm Tara, and you started to cry and you said your dog died, and I'm like, cry me a river, girl. And I didn't know you. And over time I got to know you. And then of course I already knew your story because it was the first podcast I ever listened to. And I realized that that dog had actually helped save your life. And I learned the lesson that we hear all the time. You never know what's going on in other people's lives, so don't judge. And that was a perfect example of this. And I too have furry creatures that I have mourned and will mourn. And yeah, so then we are friends ever since, and just understanding each other and going through teacher training together.
Yes, yes. Well, I think that we were both going through certain moments, and for me, mine was correlated with my trauma. But however, when you become a mother, you never expect to mourn the loss of your son. Like, that shouldn't happen at all.
That should not happen.
And I am just deeply sorry for what you went through and that you even had to experience that as a human.
Thank
And
you.
of course, and I want to go about this however you want to go about this, but he has a unique story. And I think that his story is powerful and has such a great purpose. Now, with you spreading awareness, can you start to tell me the start of that story?
Tristan was my only son. I have two daughters who was 2 years older than Tristan and one 2 years younger. And he was born an artist. As soon as he could grasp something in his hand, he started drawing on everything. floors, walls, tables, the inside of the minivan, all over his clothes. He could pick up and play almost any instrument. He became a singer, a songwriter, an animator, and he was just the quintessential, extremely talented artist that also suffered with mental health issues. And he went to Orange County School of the Arts, which is like winning the lottery for our family. It's an audition only school, and I was so proud of him. So he studied art and digital media and was able to bring all his characters to life via animation. And then he was accepted to CalArts to study experimental animation. So all of his hopes and dreams were coming true. And he had a darkness fall over him around spring semester of his freshman year. And he said, "Mom, I think I'm depressed." I'm like, are you partying too much? Are you sleeping okay? Are you hydrating? Are you, eating healthy? All those things. And so began our journey of trying to troubleshoot what to do to help him and having him being somewhat resistant to going to therapy. And he didn't like the medication, the way it made him feel, and started doing a lot of self-medicating. He definitely liked his weed, and obviously that's legal. And I had no idea the extent of his, what I think was addiction, until I was able to go through his phone. And I think that the quarantine and the isolation and the Zoom calls and being unable to collaborate with other artists and live with his friends and just only being able to do digital animations as opposed to working as a creative artist in school made his depression much worse. So on July 1st, I got that aggressive knock at the door at 6:15 in the morning, and I just knew. It was like right out of a movie, and I just said, I know when I look out my window I'm going to see a black jacket. And I looked down my stairs and I could see a sleeve of a black jacket, and I'm like, I know it's bad news. I just knew it. And I opened the door, and there was this coroner officer holding my son's phone and necklace and some rings and charger and his wallet, going, "Ma'am, ma'am, ma'am, next of kin, Mr. Alva, pronounced deceased." And just that out of body experiencing, you know, screaming for my daughter and, "Sign here, ma'am, sign here," and just almost like watching myself from above, very out of body experience. And upon looking through his phone, I saw the extensive messages. He was buying a lot of Xanax. And when we finally got the coroner's report back, he had fentanyl in his system. So it was the fentanyl that killed him. And it is the number one cause of death right now for 18 to 45-year-olds. So I have become an overdose awareness advocate. And I'm working with a nonprofit now to try and get Narcan to everyone possible, anyone and everyone, all testing strips. Everyone should carry it because it's the leading cause of death right now. And even if you don't do drugs, you go to concerts, you go to bars, you go to festivals, you go out in public, you could be the one to save a life. So that's where I'm. Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
Now that you have done so much and have so much information, I know you as a person, and I would be grateful to have you as a mother. And I feel like there's nothing you can really do to change anything or go back or do anything to change
Yeah.
the circumstances. But what are some signs that you were taught now to kind of look out for in early stages that someone might be struggling with this?
So I think the first thing that I noticed, my children's bank accounts have always been linked to mine so that I could give them allowance and, help them learn to be responsible with their money. And I was seeing a lot of cash withdrawals, everything from $20 to $80, $60, $120. And he'd say, "Oh, I'm buying things." Or sometimes he'd say he'd buy weed. And I said, "Well, I'm not working all day long, so you can buy weed or whatever." The first thing I did was stop giving him money. And I said, "If I will get you Instacart, I'll get you food, I'll get you an Uber, I'll take you for your haircuts, whatever it is, but I'm not giving you money anymore." And he still had a part-time job, and I still continued to see the cash withdrawals. And he just, "Mom, don't worry, I only smoke weed." but I just felt like something was wrong. He started missing a lot of work. He was going to work instead of every day, like 2 days a week. And, I was talking to his boss, and his boss says, well, that's on him. If he misses work, then he just doesn't get paid. So it was like an apathy from that end of things. And so that was a huge red flag for me. And I just noticed more of a disheveledness about him. And, he was kind of a thrift shop fashionista. So it wasn't about the clothes or anything, but he just seemed like his phone was breaking, his computer was breaking. He was tend to be falling a lot, and he smashed his teeth out. And then a month later, after they were fixed, they smashed out again. I'm like, why are you falling? It just wasn't right. Yeah. It consumed my every moment of my life. I worried about him 24 hours a day. I was sick to my stomach with trying to help him and trying to still live my life.
Yeah. And at this point, being a mother of a dependent, you were trying to get him into therapy. You were trying to do everything you could for him.
Yeah.
And it's so hard because those people have to really help themselves. There's nothing you could do to help them, you know?
Yes, it's so true. I would, when he was in school, talk to the school and say I'm really worried about him, and they'd bump him to the top of the therapy list at school, and then they'd say he would never show up. Yeah. It is true. He really, really has to. He really, had to have wanted to help himself. But I also understand addiction better now. I used to really be under the assumption that it's a choice, and people are just choosing to be this way. They like the way they feel, but they could stop anytime. And now I understand, just physiologically in the brain, your brain switches to, and you have a brand new brain when you become an addict, and it consumes you. And I look back now at a lot of the emotional dysregulation that he had, and I think it was because of, the amounts of Xanax he was taking, and in addition to other medications also.
Where have you gotten help from? Because there's so many places out there now. Have you done Al Anon or anything along those lines?
I did go to a couple Al-Anon meetings a couple years before I lost him. And I personally was doing a lot of therapy because people said, well, if you can't really help him, you have to help yourself and learn how to live your life and learn how to talk to him. So I joined a parent group for DBT therapy. So he was never diagnosed as borderline, but I really thought he had borderline personality disorder. So there's certain ways you do to validate their feelings. And so I went through all these trainings. I went to a weekend workshop for that. I'm talking to a therapist about it on a continual basis. And yeah, it was consuming my life, trying to keep him from being depressed, trying to keep him alive, trying to make him want to live, and trying to find my son again, that carefree, happy person. Because Tristan had a very polarizing personality. He was truly black and white. He was love and rage. He was as lonely as he was popular. He was um, friendly and helpful, but then unable to take advice from people.
Well, he sounds like still, even though he was dependent upon substances, he sounds like a really cool person and, someone that shouldn't have had their life lost in this. And there was so many things that could have been done, say, law enforcement wise.
So law enforcement wise, as
Same with, you told me how there was someone that was giving Tristan lots of supplies. Trying to be careful with the words that I use.
yeah, so when I got a hold of my son's phone and I looked through it, I had name, phone number, Venmo information of a dealer. And I took it to the police, and they thanked me for bringing it. They said I was brave. They made a copy of his phone. They're going to go after this guy. He's been on their radar. They thanked me. And then I never heard from them again. And I went back to get my son's phone, and they said, oh, it hasn't even been copied yet. and they just sort of dropped me like a hot potato. And I'm like, this guy is out there, and I'm literally handing you on a silver platter this information on him. And I soon came to discover that being a drug dealer is a misdemeanor, no different than bunny hopping a stop sign. And they weren't even to give him a misdemeanor. And I couldn't believe it. I was so frustrated. I didn't know that this side existed. And they said the problem is that when somebody is arrested, they'll say, "Well, I am also an addict," and the California laws allows the people who are arrested for drugs to go into rehabilitation as opposed to jail. So they always choose to go to rehab, and it's just a circle, and they keep going. And it's a broken system, but they're starting to change the laws, saying that if somebody sells all and someone dies from it, then they can be charged with second-degree murder, which is 20 years in jail. And they've actually passed that law in Riverside so far. So hopefully we're going to start to see a trend where they're going to make consequences, actual consequences for people going around murdering people. I don't think I would be allowed to go to my next door neighbor's house and give them a poison and kill them and say, "Oh, whoops, oopsie daisy, didn't mean to do it," and have nothing happen. It's just, yeah, it's really horrible. And with, fentanyl is lethal. The tiniest amount is 2 milligrams, which is just the size of Abraham Lincoln's nose on a penny, is lethal. And 70% of compressed drugs, illicit drugs, have double the amount of illicit fentanyl. They have 5 milligrams, and the death is immediate. So that's why it's really important people know what to look for in an overdose, and how to save someone's life, since it happens so quickly.
And how is that how you save a life? You just bring Narcan and you just like insert it in their nose?
Yeah, so if you are in a situation where someone is unresponsive, you might not know if they're overdosing or if they're passed out. If they've been drinking too much. And the first thing that's important to know is that Narcan is a neutral drug if you are not overdosing. So I could spray some up my nose right now and it would do absolutely nothing. But if I was overdosing on an opioid, it would save my life. So if someone is unresponsive, you can try looking at their eyes, looking for pinpoint pupils. They often have blue lips. They start to turn blue. And you can yell their name really loud in their face or knock really hard on their chest. And nobody likes that. They'll come to. So if they're still unresponsive, lay them on their back, and you take the Narcan, which is just a nasal spray, put it up one nostril, click and hold it for 30 seconds. And during that time, you or someone calls 911. And they should wake up pretty quickly, but if they don't, you can wait a couple minutes, administer the second dose, because they come in doses of 2, of the opposite nostril. And hopefully by that time, paramedics will be on their way. And one of the reasons why it's important to call the paramedics is because you don't know how much opioids people have in their systems, and they could overdose a second time in like a half hour or an hour. So it's important to call 911. And there is a Good Samaritan law. And this is really important to know because, especially like college students, calling 911 can be really scary because you're afraid you're going to get arrested. Like, you might be high, you might have drugs around. And if you call 911, the Good Samaritan law means they will come, they will help the person overdosing. They're not going to search your house, they're not going to arrest you. They will be helping the person, and you will not be in trouble. And there's been a lot of deaths because people are terrified to call and get help for the person overdosing.
Wow, well, thank you for sharing that. That can definitely save lives.
Yes,
Now, another thing that I think is interesting in your story is how you can be at a certain point in life and then a predator comes along.
indeed.
Yes. Can you tell me, and you could think of whatever name you want to call him. I don't know if you want to call him by his name or not, but can you share how he came into your life and then all the things you found out?
Okay. So, prior to my son's passing, I'd been single for about a year and a half, and I thought I had done the work, got myself to a really good place, really happy, cultivated lots of friendships, and really on this beautiful spiritual journey, and thought ready to meet someone, but I work from home. I have a Pilates studio in my house. I don't really go out to bars, and I go out, so, and we're just coming out of a quarantine lockdown. So I decided to go on a dating app. And very quickly, I don't know, the first month or so, I had gone on like a couple dates. I met Dick.
The name we're
Yeah,
going with.
let's go with that, Richard. Uh, yeah. And it was very beautiful beginnings to what I thought and what I called the most healthy relationship of my entire life. This person was humble and kind, and was also in the health and fitness industry, as I am. Really, really adored me. I started getting poetry. He wanted to be with me every minute. He said, "Do you have 30 minutes free today? I'll just come over and walk your dog with you." And I'm like, "God, he really likes me, you know?" And very quickly into the relationship, it must have been not even a month yet, I was told that he was in love with me. And, I've been through a lot, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to allow myself to be vulnerable, because Brene Brown says, be vulnerable. And I've been listening to all these spiritual podcasts on how to be this better version of myself. And I'm like, this person is a really good guy. And he's such a good dad. And, you know, I'm just going to do this. Life is short. And he would tell me what we have found is so rare and so difficult to find. And we just need to live our lives. And he wanted to celebrate our month anniversary every single month. Flowers and dinners, and read me more poetry, which, by the way, the poetry was very cringy. I should have brought some to share. But at the end of the time, it's like endearing. And I thought, he's kind of a nerd, but like, I guess all these years I just should have been dating a nerd. Maybe that's what my problem's been. And I just felt like I had finally got it right with the right guy. And we were going on vacations together. And one of the only missing links was I didn't meet his children for a while. And that was maybe the first red flag, because my daughter actually knew them from school and said they were the sweetest kids she'd ever met in her entire life. So I knew they were like good kids. And he would tell me, "Oh, my kids were over and we are having dinner." And we'd go grocery shopping for groceries for the kids for him to make dinner. So looking back, that was a red flag, but I couldn't tell at the time. I was just respecting the time that he had with them, because he was a single dad and he wanted to have one-on-one time with the kids. So, I thought that was cool. So 6 months into our relationship, brought me 2 dozen roses, and we celebrated our 6 month anniversary. Very fancy dinner, and telling me that he wants to talk about moving in together, and he wants to marry me one day. And he said, "You don't have to say anything." And so I said, "Well, I understand that those are the next natural steps in relationships. So let's talk about it," which we did, as time went on, and he slowly kind of started moving his stuff in, a little here and a little there. And I was okay with it. And I got that knock at the door right after our 6 month anniversary that my son had passed. And my vulnerability was at an all time low. And the way this person stepped in and helped me and helped my family, and told me that he would forever make me feel safe and loved and comforted, and that this crisis was only going to make he and I stronger, and that he talks to Tristan all the time and promises Tristan lots of things for his mom, all the things I needed to hear to make me feel safe. Everything to make me feel safe, and everything to make me so dependent on him to regulate my nervous system. And I thought, my daughters are grown into wonderful, healthy, responsible, wonderful young women. I've lost a son, but I have this man who I think I'm going to be okay, because he has shown me love like I've never felt in my entire life. Consistently, day after day. He took me to Costa Rica shortly after my son passed, because he wanted to get me out of here. And he wanted to celebrate our lives and celebrate Tristan. And we went to a butterfly farm and zip lined and scaled waterfalls. And and just had like a 10 out of 10 amazing vacation. And it just seemed like it was just getting better and better and better. And he was there for me to hold me during my downtimes and just made me completely dependent on him for my grief, for helping me survive this tragedy. Yeah, so about a year, 2 years later, we were planning our next big vacation. We're going to go to the Galapagos, which he had promised to take me to and told me we would go in the fall or in the winter of 2023, no, 24. We were going to go in the winter of 2024 to the Galapagos. So we were planning our vacation and we were looking at the computer and looking at different boats and options. And I noticed on his computer messages from a dating app. And of course, I'm, you know, I'm absolutely like freaking out. I'm like shaking. And he said that so from so long ago, he was on a dating app and he just sometimes still gets emails and he just clicked on it and he really tried to, and like I believed him because I had no other reason to think of anything. He was with me all the time. He was calling me, texting me every morning, every evening. I mean, just with me every weekend. And so I believed him, but I was still just miserably upset over it because I would never do that. I never click on anything. Why would you do that when you have the best relationship in the entire world? And so he told me that the reason why he clicked on it is because he had childhood trauma. And I don't know if he did or not, because I soon discovered that everything he said was not true since the time I had met him. I'm not discounting anyone who's ever gone through any type of childhood trauma whatsoever. I just don't know if he was making that up to try and make sure that he could keep me. So, he started some therapy and he was working really hard saying that he was just a better person. And he was actually really happy that all this happened because now our relationship was going to be even stronger and better than ever. And it was almost meant to be that we went through this difficult thing. And I'm like, oh, I don't like going through this difficult thing. I thought everything was perfect. And made me even more hopeful that, wow, every couple goes through ups and downs. No relationship goes unscathed in life. So maybe this is our little tiny hiccup and whatever. And we did that for about a month or so. One day he was over at my house and we were getting ready to go to the grocery store and we were going to make dinner and we were going to go to the beach and have dinner on the beach. And I got a text message from somebody asking me if I was dating him. And then it came again. Are you dating? And I said, who is this? And they said, it doesn't matter. I've been seeing him for several months now. And I went up to him and I said, I'm getting these messages. And he said, no, so it's not, someone's out to get me. I said, it's one of my former clients is out to get me. And I'm like, I don't know, this is just too weird. And I said, I need to look at your phone. And he gave me his phone and he had two phones and he was very good at hiding stuff. But us women, we're kind of good at finding stuff. We're sort of like little FBI, CIA. And I knew places to look. And he was just sitting next to me, cool as a cucumber. And I found just enough evidence to know that what this person's saying was true, but also that he was still on dating apps. And then he was actually having an affair with another woman for the past 10 years that went all the way back to when he was married. And he was seeing her every single day, or at least 5 days a week at his office. And she thought he was married. So there was all these really strange messages about him saying like his wife got into his phone and like it was just mind-blowing. Twilight Zone. Just like the most confusing thing I'd ever seen in my entire life. And I went from thinking, I had the best, most healthy relationship, as I said, in my entire life to it was never real. It was never real. This guy is scary AF. And the audacity of him to do this to me as a bereaved mother and to take advantage of my vulnerability and weasel his way into my life, into my children's lives. My dad's is in his 90s, becoming close with my dad, my sister. my extended family, my friends, spending holidays at our homes, meanwhile, hooking up with women left and right. And so I went through that phone with a fine tooth comb after I kicked him out of my house. And I found a lot of scary stuff. Just a mountain of seediness, of pathological lying, of just a life that I had no idea existed outside of the beautiful, perfect life that he and I shared. And to say I was traumatized is an understatement. My grief plummeted to a lowness that I did not even know was possible. Because not only did I lose my boyfriend, but there was a cheating aspect, which is very traumatizing. Betrayal trauma is a real thing, but also the idea that it was never real. And I had to come to grips with that this person portrayed themselves one way and they were not that way. We've spent also holidays with his family and, his mom and sisters. And I eventually did get to know his children very well, who are, as my daughter said, the two of the sweetest people. So it was just this whole world I was living in came to a screeching halt. And I had to crawl my way out of it. I had to literally crawl my way out of it. It was the most emotionally abusive thing anyone has ever done to me in my entire life, and I didn't deserve that. He's a sick person.
I agree. And I think there was so many things that you were doing to play detective, but it's funny how things are brought to you without you trying to figure them out at first, you know? And then once you are like, oh, this is what's happening, then you do the deep dive and then you play detective. Then you find out everything. Then you have his phone. Then you see everything coming in from the dating apps, all the messages coming in from the girls. And then I remember you saying that he was literally on a date at the winery.
Yeah, my sister saw him just shortly afterwards, like, not a care in the world. And of course, he can do whatever he wants. But, meanwhile, there's this aftermath of destruction left behind. And I found out that I wasn't the only person who was left in the aftermath of destruction. I've actually become good friends with his ex-wife who said, "Girl, I've been waiting for you to call me." And she said he is a serial cheater. And she said, "I just knew it was a matter of time before you found out." And she said, "We were always on Team Linda. The kids always really liked you. And so we just thought you should find out on your own, because if anyone would have told you, you would have thought that, oh, they're just trying to, be like the scorned ex or something." And I'm like, I guess I don't know what I would have thought, because he was really good at what he did. He was really, really good. Very calm. I'm definitely a covert narcissist because there's no raging, and just very quiet and secretive, very polished. Years of practice, decades of practice.
Yes. I even met him a few times and I didn't have an opinion about him, but I did think it was weird that time he took your car.
Yeah, that was a very love bomby thing to do. Took my car to get it detailed while I was in yoga teacher training. Took my books, my phone, my lunch, all my stuff, my clothes, everything in the car. He had an extra set of keys, and like I go out, my car is gone. We all thought my car was stolen.
Yes, we
you know,
almost called the cops.
we were gonna call the cops. We're looking for security cameras, and he just was getting my car detailed for me. But like, I didn't need my car detailed. I needed my change of clothes and more, my food. Yeah, that was just one of the many things that were a little off. I remember this shortly after my son passed away. One of my son's dear friends, Alex, was in town. And, we invited him over for dinner, and it was just the girls and I, Addie and Phoebe and Alex and I having dinner. And it's a very intimate moment. Alex met Tristan at summer camp when they were in junior high, and we're really good friends. And Alex is just one of the sweetest kids. And we're just telling stories about Tristan. And all of a sudden, Dick drives up, and I see him drive up. He takes a bottle of wine out of his trunk and comes in and goes, "Surprise." And he knew I was having this dinner, and he didn't know Alex. And it just seemed like such an invasion of privacy. But then I'm supposed to go, oh, hi, I'm so glad to see you. And of course, the whole dynamics changed. But he was known to, I felt like there was an insecurity about him that he couldn't be alone. He must have not had a date that night.
Or
But,
she
I think,
bailed.
yeah, she bailed.
She bailed.
So, I'd be going out to dinner with my daughters and he'd say, might I join you if I'll pay for dinner? And I'd be like, hey, do you guys mind if Dick goes? Because I felt bad leaving him, but I also felt like he had nothing else going on. And someone who doesn't really have any friends is like a man in their 50s is another red flag. I didn't realize it until later. I'm like, everything we did was with like my friends. That's weird to live here for decades and not have like a group of friends or friends you do stuff with and just be completely dependent on me for all his entertainment is not, I don't think, a normal thing, or at least a red flag.
That is a red flag, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
My therapist told me to write down all the red flags. And at first I'm like, there were none. There were none. It was she's like, dig deep, Linda. And I came up with 21 red flags. And she's like, whoa. And she's like, yeah, you did a good job. You dug deep. And I didn't realize how many subtle, small things that there were because in my marriage, there were some red flags that were blaring, like blazing fire red flags. I was like, oh, easy, but this one was a lot of very little subtleties.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, you went through a lot. There was a lot to find out. You even started writing a book, and I think that is the perfect time to jump off and get into the Patreon portion where we talk about your healing journey, how you are writing a book now, and everything. But for the people that are jumping off right now, where can we find you on social media? Where can we stay tuned for the next to come?
Yeah, so the Gathering Place NB on Instagram. I actually have an event. Gosh, I think it's next Thursday, a week from today. And we do them monthly. They're not on a specific day. They're not like the third Wednesday of every month. We kind of vary it a little bit each week, depending on if I'm collaborating with someone or not. And then if you want to be on my personal account, if you want to see my turtles and lots of Pilates and just like a hodgepodge of stuff, that's Pilates_mom. Yeah,
Well, thanks for coming on today. I'm going to stop recording.
thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Tara's Baddies Club. I hope you enjoyed it. If you feel like giving us 5-star reviews, that would be so helpful. Also, comment on YouTube, or if you're listening to the podcast, leave a nice review. We always like to hear your feedback here. It's only me today. I have my friend Shay who normally helps me edit, but I've just been doing all my editing from for the past like 5 weeks and just trying to save a little bit on money. But if you feel like joining this Patreon, that always helps me cover bills and helps me support me and even eating. I want to thank everyone for joining me, and I hope everyone has a great time. And until next time, I'm Tara Newell.